Hi, I'm Brian English, forum name Hyperbytes, and in this module we're going to look at adding images into our pages. At the moment we pick up where we left off, so we have the ability to be able to edit our pages and add new pages which we created before. Now we need to be able to add images to those pages. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use an upload to upload eventually multiple images, and within those multiple images we will then display them in different ways on different pages. So first thing I need to do, I could, if I wanted, simply add our uploader into this edit page data screen. Absolutely no reason why not to do that. It's in some ways perhaps preferable for some people, but because this is a training exercise, I really want to keep things as simple as possible for the understanding of the processes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add the images separate to the page data itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down here. I'm going to add another icon after the edit icon, which will be an image icon. So we choose the cell, I'm going into add after, and I'm going to add a cell in there. And of course we need to do the same with the header as well, so I'm going to add after a header into that. Don't need that text in there, so I'm just going to take that out. Within that cell I'm going to add a button. With that button I'm going to add a font awesome icon, and we're going to add an image icon. I'm going to make that bigger, and let's just take that button and let's just give it some styling. Let's go to success so we can see that it is green. In fact, no, let's make it a different color to the edit button. We'll make that yellow for image. I also want to take that word cell out. So now we have an icon ready to add our images. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to add another modal in here. So I'm going to add, after that last modal, I'm going to add a dynamic modal. I want to call that modal add image. So now what we need to do is, if you recall back to this action, if you remember what we did was we clicked on that action, we then called the matching record for the ID of this, the elements within this repeat, and we made sure that we pulled that single record through. And I'm going to do exactly the same here, because I will actually need to reference the identity of the particular page that we are referring to. I'm going to click on here, I'm going to go on the button, I'm just going to give it a click event, and that dynamic event on mouse click. And what I need to do is I want to load that single page, server connect, and I'm going to add into that our page content within the repeat that we have in our icon here. So clicking on that will load the correct record. We also need that to open the modal. I'll do that from the toggle action on this case. So we got modal, and our modal is modal add image. So now what we should find is that we click that button, it opens that modal, it pulls the correct page record over at the same time, ready for us to manage that. So I'm just going to save that now. So let's now set up our modal. So I'm going to click on that new modal we've created. Just tidy things up. I'm going to make the header yellow with dark text. I'll leave it unchanged so it's nice and bold. We need a form here. So I'm going to add a form. Just get rid of that heading. That that form in totally the wrong place. My apologies. That form should be after that paragraph. So we can just drag that down. Get rid of that paragraph. We don't need it. I'm going to add two fields here. I'm going to add a text field, which I'll ultimately be hiding, and I'm going to be adding a upload field. So let's start with a horizontal text input. Underneath below that, I'm going to add a horizontal, misclicked. Below that, I'm going to add horizontal file input, and obviously we also need a submit button. So the horizontal submit button group. I'm just going to take that text out because I'll not be needing that. I'm just going to make that modal a little bigger because it's a bit small. Obviously we don't want it full screen, but we'll have it extra large. We're not going to need that save changes button either, so let's get rid of that. I'm just going to save that now. And let's just do a quick check. If I fire up that page, just make sure that that button works. But before I do that, I'm going to do something which I'm going to use. This is purely for debug purposes. I'm going to give a dynamic attribute to that, the value to that input, and I'm going to get it to show the single page query page content ID. So as we only have one page created on this at the moment, that should just be a 1. So let's just open that in the browser, see what we have. That should open up our modal, and you can see we do have a value of 1 set to that form. So that's great. We can go back in here now into Wappler. That we want to call page content ID to match the field name. I'm going to, sorry, I did that to the wrong one. That should be the, no, sorry, I have, excuse me, that was correct. I'm just going to call this file. I'm going to leave it as single for the moment. I'm going to show you what happens with the single, and then we'll go on to a multi-file upload from there. So I'll just give that modal a title, image uploader. Quick save. Right, so now we need to look at the server action that's going to deal with this. So we're sending it two inputs. We're sending it a page input, sorry, page content ID, and we're sending it a file. So within page state, I'm going to create a new folder in here, I think. We'll call it images, and within there, I'm going to create a new API action, and I'm going to call that upload, sorry. As I'm making this at the moment, it's about -7 outside my office. It is extremely cold, and the office isn't an awful lot warmer, so I'm really stiff fingers wise. So yeah, we've created our image upload. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the inputs over from the content page. So we're into views, we're into admin, and we're going to be page content. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to do one more thing, just because it's a useful thing to do. Instead of calling it form 1, I'm going to call it form upload, just so it can recognize the form. So when we have a page with multiple forms, we can more easily recognize the appropriate form that we're dealing with. So looking at form upload, we'll now import those values, and we see there now we have two values, page content ID, which is actually a number, but as you remember, all post values are passed as text anyway, but we can call it, we'll put it number. This is really only for the benefit of the picker rather than the code itself. So having got that through, well, what we need to do now, we need to upload those files. So let's add an action, and what I'm going to do is quite simply into the image file management, file upload, and the files we're going to upload are the files contained within that file collection here. And you can see that is an object rather than a single entity. We need to decide where we're going to put that. We're going to put that into the public view in the uploads folder, and I've created a page images folder within there. So it's going to upload it into that folder. But I want to go a stage further, because actually what I want is for each page to have its own folder for its images. So what I want to do is, effectively, this is page 1, so I want that to be page images 1. But obviously we need to do that dynamically. We've got to manually do that. We can say $post dot page content ID, close those double braces, and now what will happen is that will upload the files into public uploads page images, and then a folder which is a representation of the page content ID that we've sent it. We can set a template if we want. It defaults to name and extension, and I'm happy with that, but you can also have it generate a number afterwards by putting underbar n, or you can generate a GUID as an alternative to the file name. I tend to like file names, because file names, if the files are renamed correctly, they will actually help in the SEO if you name them intelligently, as does the appropriate alt tags. So I tend to go with the file name, but we don't want spaces, we don't want non-ASCII characters and accents, etc. in. I do want to output this, because I want to show you what actually happens when we run this action, what the output is of this API action. So I'm just going to save that now. I'm going to go back into page content. I'm going to go into my form, and now what we need to do is to change that into a Server Connect form, and I want to select that upload image action. And this should now allow us to upload a single file. The only extra thing I want to do, just so we can detect errors, etc., or the lack of an error, we'll just create a dynamic event, server action, success. I'm going to select the notifications, and I'm just going to pop a message saying uploaded. You can add, obviously, you should be adding your error and your unauthorized responses as well, but you should be well capable of doing that without my assistance now, so we'll just leave that. So apart from a little spelling mistake up there, which I'm very good at, let's now fire this up. Let's click on here. You can see that we're showing 1 there. I'll make that hidden in a moment. We're going to go into choose file. We're going to choose me playing a ukulele. How exciting is that? If I click submit there, we have our message uploaded. Forgot to close the modal at the end of that success event, but that's actually going to suit me. I'm going to leave that like that for a little while, just so I don't have to keep selecting files. So if everything's worked correctly, we should find now, if we go into our community web, if I go into that public folder and I go to my uploads folder, page images, I should find a new subdirectory called 1, and within that, sure enough, there is that single image that we were looking for. So I'm going to delete that out now, because I'm going to go to the next phase of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Wappler now, and I'm going to convert this into a multi-file upload. Really easy to do now that we've got this going. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to select that file input, and I'm going to click multiple. Save that. We'll now go over to our action. I'm going to click on the file entry within the posts, and I'm going to tell it that's going to be multiple. And then just the last thing we want to do is we're just going to reload that upload fields just so it knows that there's been a change there. Let's save that action. Now, fingers crossed, if we run that in our browser again, we'll call that action, we'll choose our files. I'll choose 3 files this time. I'm going to click open. It tells us there are 3 files. I'll submit that. We have our updated message, so that's a pretty good indication that things have gone well. And if now I go back into my drive, go into my public uploads, images 1, you can see yes, all 3 of those images have indeed been uploaded as we would expect. So the next stages we're going to go to is that I'm going to be looking at how to use the Dropzone component, so you can actually just drag images to a zone within this modal rather than having to use a file chooser. And then after that, of course, the really big issue is that we are uploading raw images here. We have no idea at all how big or how small they are. And certainly if somebody says uploading a mobile phone image that can be 5 megabytes, we really don't want a huge file like that on a web page. It's going to take too long to download. So what we need to do is to start scaling these images as they're uploaded. So that will be the bit that we'll be looking at next. So let's just quickly go over. Let's have a look at our file upload. If we say convert to, and we can just click Dropzone, and there we are. Now one thing that I've noticed with Wappler is when you do that, I'm just going to save these admin pages as well. It doesn't seem to refresh straight away when you add that Dropzone to it. Not quite sure why. I'm going to close that page. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to reopen page content. I'm going to go back into that modal, and now we see that we do in fact have the Dropzone shown. So what's the difference between a Dropzone? Well, what we do now is we can fire that up, and now we can click on it and do exactly the same as we did before, our multiple file selections. But also if I just open up sorry about this, I don't know where I've gone here. Resources, images, we can actually drag an image to that zone and just drop it. It will then show that within there, and we will see a thumbnail of it. We also see the size, and this image is 6.5 megabytes, so it's much bigger than we would choose to use normally. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open these developer tools because I want to show you a little more information before we move on to the next stage. So I'm going to submit this. We can say our image upload has worked. What I want to do is to show you what we have within our response. So you can see that our upload has run and it's responded with the name of the file, Ringway House. It's shown us the path. This is the server path to that image, so it's public uploads page images 1 Ringway House PNG. And we also have a URL. Now, interestingly, with Node, the URL and the path are not the same. They will be the same with PHP, ASP, .NET, but with Node they aren't the same, and the reason for this is simply because of the way in which the server runs. It's effectively already in the public folder, when it's running. Therefore, we ignore that public section, and that the response will look after that for us. But it's important that you understand that, because there have been people in the past who have tried to use the path to reference an image and found it doesn't work, because you must use the URL. And you can actually save this completely from your response, or you can actually just build this dynamically within your front end anyway, and not store it within server action. But what you've got to remember is that if you're storing multiple copies of an image, let's say you're storing a large version, a thumbnail and a cover version, then you're going to have 3 different images. Do you really want to be storing the complete paths to all 3 within your action, or are you better either just storing this part, the uploads page images, and then dynamically adding the one, and then perhaps then you would have another subdirectory that would be thumbs, or another that would be cover images. So you need to decide which is the best structure for you, and you say we'll see a bit more of this as we work through, so you'll understand it better. So I'm just going to close this now. I'm going to go back into Wappler, and I'm going to just do a couple of other little things that we can do. We need to, first of all, we need to set that as a hidden. Let me just get rid of that prompt, because obviously that becomes meaningless. In fact, if I just drag that all the way up there, we could actually get rid of that complete setup. What I would like to do is to limit what files can be dragged in here or uploaded in here, because we don't want people loading things like PDFs, because obviously that will cause a problem with the image resizers and break the server action. So what we need to do is look at our dynamic attributes. I'm just remembering where this is. Click on the right thing, it would help. We're going to go into attributes, input, and we've got sorry, having a bit of a moment here. Yes, I'm looking completely the wrong place there, my apologies. We should be in the file upload section. Dynamic attributes. Sorry, it's in validation rules, that's why, my apologies. Accept, and we're going to tell it to accept JPEG, JPG. Let's have the alternative version of it, .pngs and .gifs. So they are the file types that we'll be looking to use. While I'm busy, I'll just now get that modal to close when the action is completed. So let's just tag onto that our modal alt image hide, and now we've got our full upload action completed. So our next stage will be looking at how to process those image names that have been uploaded, those images that have been uploaded, to resize them, and then of course ultimately we need to save that information into our database.